Our movie of the week is The Apology, which is our first documentary that we're covering. It is directed by the amazing Tiffany Shung, who you may or may not know is the sister of our original host, Jennifer Shung. I think Jennifer's face is still on the overlay. Haven't had time to change that out yet. But the Apology is a story that follows the lives of three grandmothers who were former sex slaves for the Japanese Imperial Army during World War II across Asia, also referred to as comfort women. So we like our movie of the week to tie in with our topic of the week, of course, which this week we talked about sex workers and sex trafficking. And this really is a sad story. It follows three grandmas: Grandma Gil in South Korea, Grandma Adela in the Philippines, and Grandma Chow in China. Some of whom were taken when they were 14 years old to basically be sex slaves for the Japanese Imperial Army. Like, this is totally ridiculous. But let's start with Veronica. Let's first talk about like the actual subject matter. Like, how did this make you feel just learning about this, or had you already known about these comfort women?
It's funny. I had heard the term comfort women actually from my mother. I can't even remember when, but she had talked about comfort women as she just basically said they were prostitutes. So I had no other context except that they were prostitutes. So when I watched the movie, first of all, I didn't know it was going to be like that. Within the first minute before they even showed the title, I was already crying. It was like 3 a.m. I was like, I can't sleep. I'm going to watch this. It deeply affected me. I have to say, I'm glad I watched it the Sunday morning, early that Sunday morning, because I had intended to watch it Sunday night, because like the whole day I just had to sort of come down from it. It was very impactful, very impactful.
Mm. And Leonard, what were your initial thoughts having watched this?
And yeah, it's very moving. And growing up in a Chinese household, I have not heard the most glowing reviews of the Japanese, and this did not change that. Because like my parents taught me about this stuff, like from the get go. Like I knew about comfort women. I knew about the rape of Nanking, which of course this also tied in. I knew about like some the Japanese did some horrific shit, man. Like there was a thing called I want to say Section 731. I think it was like a unit of the Japanese army that did like horrific, like gruesome experiments on Chinese prisoners of war, and they basically made it into a horror movie in China. And I didn't watch it, but even just looking at like the back of the video of the VHS box, I was like, oh, this is nightmare fuel. And so it doesn't surprise me that this happened, and it doesn't surprise me they don't want to apologize, right? And that's like the thing, that's because like they rewrote their textbooks to be like none of that happened, right? And so the very beginning of the movie, like this is not a spoiler, the very beginning, like these women are like going through Japan to like talk about their experiences, and these Japanese men are like, "Go home, you whores, you liars!" Like, fuck you. It's like, oh my god. It's like,
Yeah,
what do you think they're trying
one
to get out
thing
of this? Like, come on, man.
one thing it really shows is that I think sometimes people think of visible minorities in North America, and visible minorities are all like liberal or progressive because we're the minorities here, but in Asia and specifically in Japan, there are right wing Asians for sure, for sure.
Oh yeah.
And so they're like Trump style right wing Asians who are just going after these comfort women who all they want is an apology, and
Yeah.
yes, some money as well, because they are owed money for what we were talking about before with sex work. Like, who's the money going to? Well, they didn't go to these comfort women, and their lives have been destroyed. And I was just so inspired by the fact that, this is all the way from World War II. So I think at the time of the film, I think there were 28 comfort women who were still alive. So they were sort of fighting against time to get this apology while they were, still here to hear it. And I think now it's down under 20 are still alive. It's down to 18. And in fact, two of the women, you know, or from the film, two of the three grandmas are no longer alive, unfortunately. So it is really sad. The Japanese government, I don't know, It kind of reminds me of like the Truth and Reconciliation of what's happening in Canada and how like just insufficient it is here as well. So I don't just want to blame Japan. Like even in a liberal country like Canada, we're not doing our best. But in Japan, they have offered two apologies on this, but both times the apology was followed. It was like carefully worded apologies that were like negotiated on like, we'll say this if you take down this statue in front of our embassy. So it wasn't really an apology. And none of the apologies ever said that the women were coerced. All of them say that they were comfort women and that, we apologize for their experiences, but we won't acknowledge that they were kidnapped or were coerced. They are still trying to sell the narrative that these women willfully like became sex trafficked at 14 or younger. Like this is ridiculous. But so outside of the subject matter itself, going more on like the art form of the documentary and how it followed these narratives, what did you think of the documentary itself? First, let's go to Veronica.
It was such a good documentary, and the reason I say this is because I actually watch a lot of documentaries because I get tired of fictional stuff. But Tiffany had such a way of taking their narratives in first person so that right from the beginning, I was hooked. I think I bawled through most of the movie. And there's one scene I remember where I think it's Grandma Chow and her daughter is washing her hands for her. And then I honestly don't remember what came just before that scene or after, but I remember thinking that is just such like an everyday thing. And it really humanized Grandma Chow for me. All of them for me were humans, but it's just like seeing that in front of you, like an everyday thing that you're washing someone's hands such with care, with such love. It really, I was bawling. My eyes were swollen the next day. And also, Vaughn, you mentioned something about they were inspiring. It's funny. I went through a roller coaster of emotions. I felt like I was inspired at first, and then I felt like, these women are badass to be protesting for decades, literally. But The thing is, to become badass, you've gone through something horrific. And it's the double-edged sword. So, I mean, yes, I find them inspiring. However, it was at the cost of their lives. But I loved it. I loved how she documented their story.
Yeah, my favorite thing was how she got these women to open up in ways that they wouldn't even tell their own families because they felt shame. And one great thing, if our listeners here are able to watch the apology, it's on Amazon Prime Video right now. So if you have a Prime subscription, you can go to Amazon Prime Video and watch it, or you could rent it on iTunes or purchase it as a DVD. But if you have a chance to watch it, I would also watch an interview. So my other podcast is called Gaijin, and I just did a long interview with the director Tiffany Shang, and she really gave even more insight. Like, because one of the questions I asked her was like, how were you able to get the grandmas to like open up to you in a way they wouldn't even open up to their family? And she told me this one specific scene was that they actually waited until the cinematographer was out of the room, and they waited until their daughter was out of the room. And then when it was just Tiffany and the grandma, that's when she like revealed, you know, some of those deeper truths. And that's, you know, that's just like crazy. Actually, you know what? I've got the quote here. I just want to read it because it was just so powerful. Here, so this was the quote that I asked her about, because I was like, how on earth did you get her to like reveal this to you? And so what the grandma said was, whenever they wanted a girl, they just entered her room. It was frightening. I gave birth to 2 children, 1 girl and 1 boy. I had to strangle the baby. It was conceived at the comfort station. When the baby died, it impacted me deeply. I was impregnated by the Japanese soldiers. I almost died giving birth. Can you imagine? I was so scared I gave birth in the field. At the comfort station, I would often scream in pain. I had the baby on my way home. I had to throw it away. I was damaged so badly I could never bear any more children. And so that hit me so hard. That's about halfway through the documentary, and I was just like, how did you get these women to open up? Like, this is wow. And yeah, so she really in the interview like delved deeper into her relationship. This film took over 10 years to make. So she really did become like part of these women's inner circle of trust. And yeah, she really went on a journey with them. Let's head on over to Leonard for what your thoughts are of like the documentary and its structure and how the facts were presented.
Yeah, it was incredible. I really, yeah, like she over these 10 years, she got all this footage, and like with a movie like this, it's all about finding a story in the footage that you've got, and especially with something as delicate as this, and you don't know what you're gonna get, right? You don't know what sort of things they're gonna say, you know what kind of like, but like Tiffany managed to really pull a very complete story out of what she got, and you know, and like the way she juxtaposed the horrific traumas that they all went through, you know, the things that they survived, the ways that it scarred them, but the way she juxtaposed that with who they are now. Like some of them are mothers, like they're pillars of the community, they're activists, you know, like to show, even though they were so horribly damaged and impacted by this horrific thing that happened to them, like they still managed to carve out a semblance of a life, you know, where it just shows like immense strength, you know, and like, yeah, at the end of the day, like this, you know, like it's their story, and like they deserve an apology, right? Is really what they should get, and which they're probably not going to really get before they're all dead. But like, which is something they kept saying in the movie. They're like, you know, who are they going to apologize to when we're all dead? So that's why they're doing this now. But if there's one thing you can do, not just for them, but for like this film, on IMDb, the rating is like 5.6 out of 10 or something stupid, because all these Japanese people have gone on and given it like 1-star reviews. So like, honestly, like if you're listening to this movie deserves to be seen. And I know some people would look at like IMDb and like, oh, 5, I'm not going to watch this. It's not a 5.6 star movie, man. This is a 10-star movie, and it, you know, that has to be reflected. So please, like whoever's listening to this, go on IMDb, sign in, whatever, just give it a 10-star review. Like, I mean, watch the movie. I mean, don't give it a 10-star review you don't believe it does, but if you watch the movie, I don't see how you're not going to believe it does. So exactly. Unless you're Japanese and you don't believe this shit. But then why do you watch this movie anyways? Like, you're not in it for the facts. So
yeah. I will say, because I do know we've got some Japanese listeners. We will say, just to clarify, it's the specific Japanese trolls.
Oh yeah,
they're like right-wing extremists of Japan. It's not the general Japanese population. Yes. Because when I spoke with Tiffany, she said that there was actually a lot of support in Japan for the apology. It's just there's these Trump style right wing Fox News of Japan kind of people who are just out of
Right.
control and have nothing better to do.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, let me clarify that. Yeah, I have Japanese friends. I love them. They're great. I just
I
don't
have a
like
Japanese
Japanese rapists.
wife.
That's I mean, I don't like any rapists, regardless of nationality. That's just the thing that I have. Yeah, so yeah, it's just
It's those
the
trolls.
people who rape and the people who cover it up and the people who refuse to acknowledge that it even existed. I don't like those people, but
Yeah.
in general, love the Japanese.
Oh my god.
I
Okay.
love this. Look, man, I have a Sony PlayStation. I'm gonna buy the PS5 for sure. I used to own a Nissan. Come on, man. Like, I'm all for Japanese stuff. I'm fine.
The
Just not the
original
rape
thought
part,
was
not
go
the-
to
not the-
IMDb.
What's that?
The original thought was go to IMDb.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, go to
Yeah.
IMDb.
What I
And once again, it's on Amazon Prime. You don't have to pay for it if you already have Amazon Prime, or you can download or purchase on iTunes. Please, please, please see this. Please, please, please go to IMDb and fight Japanese trolls. The good thing though is it won 15 international awards, including the prestigious Peabody Award, for goodness
Yeah.
sake.
It's huge.
That is
Huge.
Amazing.
basically one of the biggest awards in the world. So,
Yeah.
there's that. So go see it. Highly recommended. And thanks for Tiffany Shung, who is actually at TIFF tonight, the Toronto International Film Festival, debuting her new short, Sing Me a Lullaby, which actually is more personal. It's about her journey with her mom and finding out about her mom's biological family. And actually, it was filmed during the same time that she was filming The Apology. So in a lot of ways, it's sort of like a bookend. During the interview, she said one could not have been made without the other, because the more she learned about these grandmas, the more she was starting to learn about her own family, and it sort of intermingled over a 10 to 15 year period. So if you like The Apology, definitely support her latest movie, Sing Me a Lullaby, which is available. I don't know what TIFF's website is, but just look up Toronto International Film Festival, and it is there. Sing Me a Lullaby.